Welcome to Insight Builder channel, large language model automators, chatbot experts, and my dear friends. Rasa Econobot, featuring forms, prompt multiple input with Rasa framework forms. What is the Econobot that I'm talking about? The Rasa Econobot has multiple capabilities. It can tell which country is most developed. It can also talk about the various kinds of economic dimensions that a country can have. If you are going to ask about a particular economic detail of a country, it can provide it for you. All these capacities, we can build it into this particular Econobot. We are going to use forms because we have to collect more than one user input in certain cases. We will be seeing how that happens and where that happens. So Econobot is a bot with the data. We have to, the bot usually is going to automate a particular process. And in this case, it is going to be the data retrieval from a document. And we want it to be as natural as possible. And we want that particular logic that is required for extracting the data to be completely abstracted from the humans. So the Econobot, as I already told, can list the economic dimensions, list the country it contains, and also can list one of the data for any of the country. Let's see what the Econobot can do. Let's go to the shell and let's fire up the Rasa shell, which already is inside the Econobot folder. So this particular code repo will be shared with you guys in the description of the YouTube video, and you can review that and also practice it in your free times. Now we are going to see some of the actions that the Econobot can perform, and then we are going to see how this was done coded in the backend and how the forms were used here. The model has been loaded, and in the bottom of the shell or the terminal we see that the bot is waiting for our input. The user, that is me, I'm going to ask, I am looking for some economic details. So this is what I'm asking, and you see there is a mistake that I'm making, but still these are all ignored or considered already by the internal models. The bot responds that I'm Econobot powered by Python and I can help with the indicators. I want to know what are the list of indicators you have, and you see that it is able to provide me the various indicators. Or if I say list me the indicators, you see that it's not able to list anything. There are certain kinds of sentences which has been already coded into the bot, and to that only, to those statements only, the bot can respond. So this is one of the shortcomings of the intent based Rasa chatbot creation. There has been a recent development where the intentless chatbot development is catching up. I'll be discussing about that in the next video. It is called as an end-to-end training where the intents are completely removed. But in this case, we will continue with this intent only. Going forward, let me ask, which country details have you got? And you see that it has got more than 217 countries details, and it is showing the first 10 for reference. So the countries are already sorted based on the alphabetical order, and it is able to provide the names of the countries. And I'm going to say that I need a data for a particular country. So this is what I'm going to ask, and it immediately asks me, okay, which country you need the data for. So I'm going to say Germany. So this is one of the countries I'm looking for, and it is asking me which dimension or which indicator that you are looking for. I say population, and moment I do that, the bot is able to respond to me with the population of Germany is so and so number. All this has been coded into the bot using the action server. So you see at the back end, in the same server, I am running one more additional instance of a server called as an action server, which is having the necessary Python logic, which works with the inputs that is given from the chatbot. So here we see that there are a couple of actions like actions column list, action country list, action data access. All these things are getting called every time when the bot is asked various questions. So we can see that by using the Rasa framework, we can actually create natural language enabled data exploration also. You need to have little more control over what kind of inputs and how these inputs are going to be given to the chatbot. One of the major challenges that I faced when developing this bot was to work with the forms and how to work with the intents and entities for those forms. When I was asking for, when I requested the bot that I needed data for a particular country in this area, as you can see my mouse, the bot went ahead and asked me two questions. So it is asking me which country you need the data, and it is asking, after that it is asking me which dimension you need the data. In both these cases, this is actually part of a form. And instead of giving a single sentence which contains both the population as well as the entity, population as well as the country, which actually can create a confusion, I have created a form which can take the inputs one by one. This is just a simple example that I wanted to show you. Apart from that, I also want to show how you can integrate other Python libraries in the backend in the chatbot action server and get the logic incorporated. So we have seen how the bot actually works in the front end. Now it is time that we understand what actually goes inside the bot. The Econobot, as we saw, it can do certain activities, and you saw the demo of it. In order for the Econobot to give all those information, we first of all need to give the data to it. For this, I had used kaggle.com and got the all countries and their economies data, which is available for everybody. You can also download it from there. The link has been shared here. I'll be sharing this link in the YouTube description also. Second, the Python functions with two input arguments are required. That is how the data access, meaning the final step where I was asking for the country data for this particular output, I had to provide two inputs. I had to provide the country name as well as I had to provide the indicator or the dimension. If I, instead of, you see the indicator name is provided here, the population, that is what I have provided here. I can also work with other indicators also. I can work with electric production per percentage. I can work with CO2 underscore emissions underscore tons. One important point I wanted to mention here is, if you are going to work on the same form again, you should always restart. It is better to restart the bot, or else the slots that has been filled in the bot will not work. And whenever you restart the form, if you directly try to push into the push to the particular intent, so there is a intent that has been already programmed into the bot. So I'll be explaining these things as I go into this discussion, but keep track of some of the important aspects that I am trying to tell here. I have restarted the bot and I'm saying I need data for a particular country. I'm repeating whatever I'm telling, and immediately it is asking me which country you need the data. I am continuing with Germany. Okay, but this time I'm going to ask for a different dimension. So I want to know the sanitation services percentage of population. Or let us make it simple. So let us say electricity production PC. As you can see here, I am actually maintaining the exact case of the value, exact case of the indicator. So here it is electricity underscore production underscore PC with capital P. I am maintaining that. If I don't do that, what will happen is it will error out, because internally the logic that I have created in Python does not work with does not work if the case is wrong. So when we are going to deploy this bot, we need to also take care of all those aspects of the Python function. And if you don't restart, as I already told, that the form will have the earlier slots filled up, and it will create a challenge for us, and it will create a confusion internally for the bot, and it will give a wrong answer to us. And sometimes it will not even completely fill the form, it will immediately provide the answer. All these things can be avoided if you start by using this restart option. If you want to stop the bot, the code is to stop like this. So if you click on this, the server will stop. The Rasa, this is the core server, the chatbot server which is running, which is not actually linked with the action server. The action server will keep on running even if you stop the Rasa core bot. So if you want to stop the action server, you have to again come to that particular server and you have to kill that server. So that is how I killed it right now. Going back to the discussion. So we were discussing on the data access. The Python function with two inputs arguments is required. We need to list the dimensions we need to list the countries. We can simply list the columns by using the data frame columns attribute that is available for all the pandas data frames. And in case of countries, we can use list unique country values with the data frame method. So I'll be showing you how these were coded, but our important idea is how forms are being used. Whenever I am asking for specific inputs, in this case, I am asking for country and its indicators. At that time, there are two different inputs are required, and we needed the forms. You understood why forms are required. These abilities. So if you take the list dimensions and list countries, here there is actually you are not expecting any kind of inputs to be given to the chatbot. You are just asking the chatbot to do something, and for that, a simple action will be fine. But if you are going to ask for input from the output from the bot, sorry about the disturbance. So if you are going to ask for only the columns, listing the columns and dimensions, there you don't need to actually give any inputs. Next, we are going to see how to build the flow for the form. The form by itself is containing multiple parts. First of all, the forms needs the values, that is the values that it is going to accept, that will be coded using the entities. Once that entities are coded, we need to create the responses that will ask for these entities. This is one of the important steps that I had missed. I'll be showing you the responses for that. The responses are syntaxed using utter underscore ask, and then you need to use the entity name. Following that, you need to also create the slots. After these three steps have been completed, then you need to create the form. Inside all these things, create the form, entities, response, slots. It is all done in domain.yaml. Once that is done, then we go to the intent. The intent here, it's about the intent that is necessary for getting the entities. I am not talking about the intent that is necessary to invoke the form. So that is different. After you invoke the form, when you are giving the details, like in the case of the data that we are trying to request, in case of the country, we were providing that which country you need the data. So we told Germany. So even when we give this single input, the bot needs to know that, okay, this particular word has to be classified as the country, and this particular word has to be classified as the indicator. That is done using the intent. Following that intent, we need to create the rules where the forms are activated and then deactivated. So this is the second challenge that I was facing when I developed this particular chatbot. Because first thing, if you don't code the responses, then your bot will not ask for the specific responses when the form is getting activated. So you will not know that this particular situation is for our particular input. So you will not be knowing that. And second is the rules where the forms are getting activated and deactivated are little bit confusing to catch. So I'll be explaining these things to you as I go through this code discussion. Once the rules are completed, meaning the rules of the forms activation and deactivation is completed and the slots are filled up, then the actions starts. The action.py Python script will contain the various details of the data, the functions, as well as the necessary code to provide the data back to the bot output. So this is the entire flow that is required to build the form and then make it happen, make it to work that the way you saw in a couple of minutes. I believe that you like this content. Do leave a like, share it with others, and subscribe to my channel for further updates on similar kind of discussion on chatbots, artificial intelligence related open source ecosystem. Let's now move to the code. Let's take a look at the domain.yaml file. As I was already discussed with you regarding the flow, it will be much easier for you to follow. And also this particular domain.yaml file and the corresponding NLU and rules, etc. I have given a lot of comments here because I had been working on this particular code for quite some time and I was trying to experiment with it. So I felt it's better that I provide the comments at each location. I began by creating these indicators. So I started creating the data access. The goodbye indicator is already available in the regular domain.yaml that is available by default in the project. The highest in the indicator underscore look, lowest in what indicators, which country, and inform. All these intents were manually defined by me. We need to first of all declare the intents. That is very, very important. As the discussion on the code continues, I will be explaining you how these intents are used and why these intents are required. Moving forward, the entities. There are only two entities required. I'm going to work with the country and the column, that is the various data that we are going to pull. Before we go into discussing the entities and countries, I would suggest that let us go to the kaggle.com and let us look at the data that you are going to work with. So the data you can directly see here in the Kaggle website itself. You can see what are the various columns that is inside the data. You can also import this CSV file into a Jupyter notebook and you can work from there also, and I did that only, and that particular Jupyter notebook also will be shared with you guys, so you don't need to worry about that. You can take a look at that also. As you can see, the column names, the poverty headcount, the life expectancy, the population growth, net migration, all these are available here. Only one change is that I have modified the column names so that it will contain the underscores. So if you see the column names, the indicators are containing the underscores. I'll be telling you how that was done, and this is a usual convention when you are going to work with the pandas framework to avoid any kind of error or any kind of issue when you are working with the complex data sets. Let's continue. So if you, for an example, if you want the data of the population of Angola, then all we need to provide is the column name population as well as the row that is equal to Angola in case of country. And that is how the internal Python code has been done. For those who are aware of pandas, this will be a very simple task, right? It's not very big of a challenge if you know how to work with pandas. But if you are going to make a chatbot do this activity for the people who are not having access to the data sets, then we have to understand how to implement this in the backend. So we have taken a look at the data right now. Let's go back to the code. We were discussing the intents and then we went and discussed the code before we discuss the entities. So now you understand why these two entities were created, the country and the column. Every variable that intents or variables, the slots, everything has been created for solving a particular problem. And that is the reason why you see that I move between multiple parts of a particular development. A chatbot, for that matter, is not it's actually a complex system that involves multiple parts, right? As you saw, the data is there, the code of the chatbot itself, the front end that you are going to look for, All these things comes into picture, but all these things are glued together by this domain.yaml file. Continuing further, after the entities has been created, that is country and column, then comes the slots. Always keep one thing in mind. This is something that tripped me a lot. Always make the entities as well as its slots same. Give the same name. Do not try to give multiple names or different names to both the entities and the slots. It creates a lots of confusion, especially when you are going to use use it in the NLU.yaml file. I'll be showing you the NLU file in a couple of minutes. Let's continue. In the slots, I have created two slots, that is country and column, and I am using the type as text for both the slots, and it both influences the conversation, meaning that if the data for that particular slot is not available, then it will actually return as none, so it will not be able to execute anything on that. Following that, we have mappings where the from entity type mappings is used, and the entity that is mapped is the corresponding entities that you see at the top. So for country it is country, and for column it is column. After this, after the intent, after the entities, after the slot, the forms are defined. Usually in the domain.yaml file, the forms are defined after the slots. So this is also one of the challenges that I faced. So once you define the form, it feels that okay, now the form has been defined, so it should work. So somehow I was thinking that the form will generate a request to the user whenever it needs to get the country data, or whenever it needs to get the column data. But in fact, that's not how it works. So once you create the slot, and once you create the entities to which you are going to ask for the user input, you have to first of all come and create the responses. So this is the flow that you need to follow. That is one of the reason why I created this flow. If you go here, so I created the entities. I first asked you to create the response and then the slot. But in the YAML file, if you see, I am doing it in the opposite way. This is done because of the convention. So I am what is happening here, I am creating the entities, I am creating the slots, which is as per this particular file. The slots is coming at the top, but when I am writing this file, I will go ahead and create the responses first. So utter ask country and utter ask column. So this two responses I will first create, and then only I will go and create the slots. That is how the development has to be done. If you do it this way, you will not face any challenges, because you know, okay, the entities has been created, I have created the response, and then you will go to the slots. Or else I will explain you what kind of challenge will occur. Here in the utter ask country, we are asking which country you need the data, and in utter ask column, which dimension you need the data. You see, these two responses are what the bot asks: which country you need the data and which dimension you need the data, and to which we are responding. I need it for Germany, I need it for electricity production percentage. So that is how the entire setup is working. This interaction between multiple parts of the entities, the responses and the slots is little bit confusing when you are going to work with Rasa framework or any of the bot framework. Keep this in mind and use the development flow so that you can avoid any of the mistakes. After this, we are going to create the forms. So I have created 3 forms here. There is a data form, which is what we are going to discuss in this particular discussion. But apart from that, I have created a high form and a low form. I'm not going to discuss this. You can actually play with this and see what this does. Moving forward, so here I have also written that forms don't create their own questions. So this is something that I already commented it here. It is also not mentioned, as I told, it's not mentioned in the Rasa documentation clearly. That is also one of the challenges that I used one of my friends' support to understand. After this, we have to create the actions. The actions are also defined in domain.yaml file, and I am creating multiple actions here. So the action underscore data.access, action underscore columns underscore list, country underscore list, action underscore lowest and highest. So all these are the actions that I created. We will be using the first three actions. The next two I will not be discussing in this video. Now, after we do all these definitions, we have to give the data set necessary for the model to train. That is done through the just a minute. That is done through the data and NLU.yaml file. So here is where all the intents, all the entities, etc., we are going to tell how the user is going to provide the input. So you can see that every intent, the indicator look has its own examples. So here I'm saying I'm looking for economic indicators. Can you help me with country economic indicators? All these sentences will get the response from the bot, and the response, the intent will be considered as indicator under look. How this works and how the statements are classified into intents, I have discussed this in detail in my earlier Rasa framework videos. Take a look at that for a more clarity. Then I have what indicators. These indicators is going to tell this particular intent is going to trigger the action. So you will be seeing that in the stories in the next couple of minutes. And then there is which underscore country. It is talking about which country details are available, how many country details are present. All these questions will create an intent of which country. And data access. This is one of the important intent. So this intent is going to trigger the form first. So here I'm saying I want to access a particular data of a country. So here I'm being very specific. I want to access one data of a country. Need to access a data on a country. So these kinds of statements has to be considered as a intent data underscore access. This is what I am telling by using these examples. So this intent highest in and lowest in was used for experimentation purpose, where I wanted to understand to work with single input forms. Going on further, you see here there is a larger list of examples where I am creating an intent called as inform. This inform intent will contain the example data for both the country. You see the country here, which is coded here. You can see it is the country name is coded inside the square bracket, and it is termed as country entity in the parenthesis. So like this only you need to code the entities in the intent. Why I'm giving this many examples is because that the model has to train for all length and all the length and the letters of the countries that can be asked by the user. Moreover, if you see in this output, I have already requested that what are the countries that the bot is having, what are the details the bot is having, and then I see it is talking about all the countries from the alphabetical order from A, and then I am asking for Germany. Here the user can actually see, okay, all the country names are in lowercase, and that is the reason why I use lowercase. But not all the users will be observant enough. So we need to also look into these kinds of changes or challenges which the users can pose. Let's continue further. And yeah, one more thing. Here I had directly told that I want the data on Germany, but some users can say I want data on Germany, or some users can say I need the data on Germany. We don't know how the users are going to ask for the data. So that's why we have to code all the ways the users are going to ask for the data. These things comes by doing a lot of trials with the actual users, and also by letting the users to test your bot in the early stage. In that way, you can get the information from the chatbot itself and then start coding the intents. Till now, we have seen, let's go back to the presentation. So till now, we have seen the entity, how the responses are created, how the slots, the form is defined. Then we looked at how the intents are coded into the NLU.yaml file. After this is where we have given the basic structure and the form, meaning the shape, to the chatbot. Next, we need to give the logic or how the chatbot is going to respond. For that, we need to go to the rules.yaml file. So There are two ways to code forms into the chatbot. One is using the rules and another is using the stories. In this discussion, I am going to primarily work upon the rules.yaml file, and in the next coming videos, I will be discussing on stories.yaml file. Let's continue. The next stop is going to be rules.yaml file. So Econobot data rules.yaml file. In the rules.yaml file, you see that I have a very specific rule here. I'm saying if the rule name is get data, and it has got 3 steps. So the first rule, the get data, is going to open the form, meaning it will start running the form. And the second rule, that is from line number 15, is going to submit the form. So there are 2 different steps involved in the form operation. This step, the activation and the deactivation of the form, has to be handled separately. Initially, this was one of the major tripping point for me, because I was expecting that by simply calling the form and making it to run, meaning the form to run, I'll be able to submit and get the data out. But that's not how it works. You have to properly get the data into the slots, and then after that you have to deactivate the form, and then only you can submit the form for actions, or else the chatbot does not work. So as I was telling, it was not intuitive. After researching further and looking at other examples and other people's how they have coded it, then I realized, okay, there has to be 2 steps or 2 rules that we need to create, and one rule will open the form for data access, and another rule will make it to submit. So the intent data underscore access, we have already seen what will trigger this intent, and then you saw that data underscore form will action will start, and then the active loop will create the form to run actively, meaning it will loop until all the data is received. In the second rule, the data submit, first of all, to enter into this loop and start moving forward, the form has to be in the active state. So the data underscore form should be in active loop, then only the further steps will continue. So the action is again data form, and now in this case the data that is required has been already collected. So the active loop will terminate the form, and then the slot was set will also get initiated, and the request underscore slot, that is required slots, are also converted to null, telling that okay, all these slots have been filled up, we don't need further data. After that, action underscore data underscore access is getting called. So the idea here is that the form has to collect the data, ensure that all the data has been collected, and then the form has to be terminated. So that is what this 2 rules are doing hand in hand. Let me also show you the stories so that you can understand the additional step that is going on. If you go into the data stories, so you'll see here I am asking for I have also created a lot of additional comments here, because I had done some experimentation with the stories also. We have to first of all create the inform intent. Without the inform intent, we will not be able to get the country or the indicator data that we are trying to extract. It is not possible to extract. I'll be showing you that in a couple of minutes, how the chatbot sees the statement, user statements, so that you can understand more in detail. But let's continue with this story. So I am asking for the list indicators. In case of the chatbot, I had requested for the list of indicators. So this list of indicators and this list of countries, both of these are happening through this story. So initially the user is telling I'm looking for some economic indicators, and then the bot is uttering that I am an Econobot. Following that, the indicator is the user is asking what indicators you can provide me, which country you can provide me, etc., and the entire process goes on. And finally, the story ends by saying goodbye. This is how the story is working. At this moment, I have covered all the structure of the chatbot, the various intents, the rules, the stories, and the forms, slots, etc. But still, the most important point is the actions and the logic of Python that is involved there. So let's go to the actions.py code. So let's go to Econobot actions.py. The actions.py in case of the Econobot is pretty large. Most of the code is depending on pulling the countries_economies.csv file that we saw in the kaggle.com. It works on actually loading that file into the data frame, that is pandas data frame. Following that, I am converting the columns into snake case, as you can see here with the underscore. Then I am creating the functions. So this functions is the first function, the data access function. You see it is trying to get the particular economic data for a country. It's a very simple function. So first of all I'm checking whether the country that is given is inside the country list, or else it will say the country is not in list. And the second, it is checking whether the indicator is in the columns. If not, it will say that the column is not in the list of requested data. And finally, list of requested indicators. So that was a mistake. Indicators. Okay. And here you can, if you are aware of pandas data frames, you can see that I'm using the simple internal data frame logic to check the country name with the data frame rows, and then I am getting the particular column data. There are other ways to get this particular data, but this is the simplest option that we have got, and it's also self-explanatory. The other functions are also similar kind of a thing that is doing various logic here. One thing that I want you guys to take a look at is the actions. The actions are almost 3 actions are there. The actions column list. So this will directly list the columns. So these listing actions does not have separate functions. It's not required basically. You have to just use the data frame attributes econ_df.columns that will get you the column list, and you can use the simple Python string literals to list the columns, list the indicators, that is. And you have action country list, which is again using the data frame country.unique method, and then we have got a list. And then here what I've done is I am just showing the first 10 for reference, first 10 country for reference, by using the indexes, the array index that we use in Python, list index. And then we have the action data access. This is where I'm getting the data from the slots. So using the tracker.getSlot country and tracker.getSlot column in line number 124 and 125, I'm able to get the data that is stored inside the slots using the tracker object. And then I am calling the data access function, and then the output is provided to the user. So this is the, when you look at it as a Python script, it's not a very complex script. It's actually simple. The idea of all this complexity is that the user is going to give the input in natural language, and the chatbot has to understand it, or meaning it has to extract the data from the user input, and then it has to run some logic at the backend. That is why all this structure as well as the logic has to be coded like this. We have seen all this step, and we have seen how the actions.py also support. In order to make this actions work, we need to start the action server. Then only these functions will work. The functions and the various classes that you have declared here, it will work only when the action server is running. And we will again start the Rasa server this time, but this time we are going to use Rasa Interactive. What will happen is when you're going to use the interactive mode, the model will get loaded, and each statement that you're going to input to the chatbot will be uh, analyzed by the model, and it will tell you what the model is thinking. In this way, you will actually understand what is going inside the what is happening inside the chatbot. You will be looking at the internal workings of the model. Just a moment, and we have the chatbot almost ready. The Sanix server is getting loaded, and the model is also getting loaded. It will take a couple of seconds now, and we'll have the prompt for the user input. Once the prompt is available, we can see how the model is looking at the intents, how the model is looking at the entities, and how we can learn from this. So we have the user input here. So I am saying I am looking for some economic data. The moment I give the statement, the NLU model classified I am looking for some economic data with intent indicator look. So you see that this particular sentence has been classified as indicator underscore look intent, and there are no entities. So it is also telling that. So I say yes, it is correct. Next, it is saying the bot wants to run utter I am bot response. As per the story, the response is correct. And you see, once I say yes, the step, you can see the bot and the user response is getting tabulated here. You see the bot is responded utter I am bot. And you can also see the various slots that can be filled. So all these aspects of the chatbot is getting updated in this particular session. Next, it is saying action listen. So I'm going to say yes. Now we have already completed a part of the chat framework. Next, what we are going to do is what indicators have you got? This is actually classified as what indicators. So there is an intent called what indicators. It's correct, and the bot is telling that it wants to run the action column list, which is correct again. So I'm going to say yes, and the moment I do that, it is able to list the various indicators that is available, and this time it has connected to the action server, and it has ran the action underscore columns list. So that is how you got this particular data. And now I'm going to again say yes, because the bot has to listen. I'm going to say what country details have you got? And here it is saying the intent, it is able to classify it again properly, that which country, and I say yes, and it is saying action country list. The bot wants to run action underscore country underscore list, which is again correct. So you see the bot is able to respond to me with the various countries. Again, the bot is going into the listen mode. Now I am going to say I need a particular data on a country. Now what is happening is this particular sentence is converted into an intent called data underscore access. Again, there are no entities, which is correct. The moment I do this, now what is happening, it is the bot is telling that it is going to run the data underscore form, which is what I want. After this, the data form gets initiated. So till now, whenever you saw, there was no any kind of additional this active loop was not there. There was no slots involved. None of these things were there. Now with the form, this particular active loop and the slots have come into picture, and it is now going into the listening mode. So let's, and also it is asking for the country, and it is going into the listening mode. So let us say yes, and I want country. You will see how the entities are getting recognized here. Country is India. Once I do this, you'll see you'll see that the bot is actually recognizing India as the country, and are all entities labeled correctly. So if the labeling is wrong, then you need to say no. But in this case, the labeling is correct. So I'm going to say yes. Once I do that, you'll see that the country slot is filled with India. Next, I say, okay, the bot wants to run the data form. I say yes, and it is going into the listening mode. Yes. So the bot is going to be in the loop. It is not going to come out of the data form. So it is in the active loop still. Let's again say, but here it is asking which dimensions you need. The bot is now asking for which dimensions you need. So I am looking for population. Okay, and I'm going to enter, and here the population is properly labeled as column and it is correct, so I'm going to say yes. And once I do that, the bot actually goes into the goes back into the data form, but here you see the column population is also updated, but here it's not actually running the action still. So it is saying that it wants to run the data form, so I'm going to say yes. After that, then only it is saying it is going to access the action underscore data access, so which is correct. So I'm going to say yes, and then you see population of India is 1.42, which is in billions, so that's what it's getting responded here. And after that, the bot is going back into the listening mode. So we see that it has come through an entire process where we saw that, where we see this entire logic that is getting played out. So the entities, the responses, the slots are all pushed into the form. The entities are learned using the intent that is written inside the NLU.yaml file, the data that is written into NLU.yaml file, and then we have the rules.yaml file where the form is getting activated and then deactivated. You saw the entire process of activation and deactivation in a couple of minutes back in the Rasa interactive terminal. We also saw how the action server support in providing the necessary data and also processing the necessary data for the chatbot and giving the input. So all these steps we covered in this particular discussion. So I believe that you had a good idea of how to work with forms and how not to actually create certain challenges to yourself when you're working with chatbot and their forms. I'll be further discussing on chatbot development without intents. So there is intentless chatbot development where end-to-end development or end-to-end training has been enabled by Rasa framework. So I will be experimenting with it, and I will be sharing you in the coming videos. With till that video, stay tuned and practice. See you guys. Have a great time.